So my name is Leacey. I'm a gerontologist with South Dakota State University Extension. So I wanted to start off by asking everybody to type where they are located in the chat box. So we've got Rapid City. I'm also in Rapid City. We got Porter, Minnesota, and Ogden, Illinois. That's exciting. Wonderful. Well, I am glad to have you here with me today. And I'm sorry about that snafu where I didn't have myself unmuted. I was, it happens. I think we all mess up with technology every now and then, don't we? All right. So housekeeping, this session will be recorded. And as we're moving along today, if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. Depending on the question, I may stop or I just may hold all the questions until we get to the end. And to begin, I want to start by explaining the difference between gerontology and geriatrics. So gerontology is a social science that focuses on the psychological, biological, and sociological processes that influence how we experience aging. In contrast, geriatrics is a medical profession that focuses on the needs of older adults. So what I would like you to do next is to type 1 or 2 words in the chat box that come to mind when you think of aging. So wisdom and growth, wrinkles, dying, old, volunteer, time to do what I want, but will I be able to? Okay. So today we're going to discuss the difference between aging and disease, discuss common myths about aging, and describe why our thoughts about aging matter, increase our understanding of what it means to age well, and identify strategies to help us age well. To start off, aging is different than disease. Aging refers to the changes that happen to our bodies as a result of the passage of time. Diseases refer to specific medical conditions that are associated with certain signs or symptoms. So we're talking diabetes, dementia, heart disease. Those are diseases. Aging is gray hair, wrinkles. The thing about aging is it increases our risk of developing disease, but those changes that happen to us as a result of time do not necessarily lead to disease. There is a study, the Baltimore longitudinal study has been going on since 1958, and that they are the ones that have really helped us understand what is aging and what is considered normal aging or common aging. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. I want to start out by discussing some aging myths. There are myths that older adults are depressed, they're lonely, they're weak, they're frail, they're dependent, they don't have sex, they're closed-minded, they have an impaired memory, they're diseased. I do want you to notice that I have starred impaired memory and disease. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying on the previous slide. As we get older, our risk of having memory impairment or diseases increases, but it's not an inevitable part of getting older. And these are common myths that people believe, but there's evidence out there that suggests that older adults are less lonely than younger adults. So there's this common versus normal distinction that I heard someone mention earlier. So I think it's helpful to understand some things are common, like memory loss is more common in older adults than it is younger adults. but it's not normal. Does that make sense? All right, so these are common, another way to think about these are stereotypes. So why should we be concerned about ageism and stereotypes? What the research is telling us is that 1 out of every $7 spent on the most costly medical conditions can be attributed to ageism. And if you look at that chart on the right of your screen, that highest column is negative self-perceptions on aging. So people will say to themselves, I'm old, I'm supposed to be this way. And what the research is telling us is our attitudes and beliefs about aging predict our physical functioning, our health, how we report our own health, our functional status, our cardiovascular health. A really interesting one about that cardiovascular health, there is evidence that says a younger person who has a more negative outlook on aging is more likely to have a heart attack than a younger person who has a more positive outlook on aging. It predicts cognition, recovery from health events. A person who has a more positive outlook on aging is more likely to recover from disability or a medical condition. A person who has a more positive outlook on aging is more likely to engage in the behaviors that we know improve our health and wellness outcomes. People who have a more positive outlook on aging are more likely to go to their doctor and bring up their health concerns with their doctor instead of just accepting what they're experiencing as a normal part of getting older. And also their social and economic opportunities. After age 50, and I know many people don't think of 50 as an older person, but it is harder for someone older than 50 to get a job than someone under 50. So what if I told you that you could reduce your risk of dementia by having a more positive outlook on aging? There is evidence that even among individuals who have the high risk gene for Alzheimer's disease, there's a 50% less chance of developing Alzheimer's among those that have a more positive outlook on getting older. You know, for me, this is some powerful stuff. You know, so I have stories from people that have seen these real life situations where they can see aging attitudes in action. So I was wondering if anybody in the group, and we're a small group, so if you want to unmute yourself to talk, I'm okay with that. But has anybody seen somebody with a really positive outlook on aging or a really negative outlook on aging? And what was their life like? Anybody seen that live and in action?
This is Monica Colby. Yeah, I have a friend who still runs Spartan races, even broke her shoulder and still rehabilitated to go out and run more. It doesn't seem to slow her down, the idea of needing to be healthy and exercise and do what she should do, even when she broke bones because of a fall during a race. It was still a let's go out and race.
There's that positive outlook. Anybody else want to share an example of a positive or negative? I've heard both as I've talked about this topic. So while you're thinking, I'll share a story. So I talk about aging well quite a bit. It's one area that I'm really interested in because the research says that not many people, there are a group of people who don't understand that we can be older and we can be healthy, that those things can coexist. And so I was presenting to a group of senior companions on this topic of aging well. How do we age well? And as I was done wrapping up my presentation, one of the audience members, she raised her hand. And I believe it was the 75th birthday, 70 or 75th birthday. It was, you know, one of those, the big ones. And she's a twin sister. And she said that at their birthday party, her twin sister was very, oh, I don't want to be old. This sucks. I don't want to be old. This is terrible. I mean, just this really negative, crummy attitude. And what this woman shared with the group is that 5 years later, she herself is in pretty good overall health, but her sister is experiencing a lot of really complicated health conditions now. So there's evidence that how we think about aging is really important. And something that's really key, and I want to drive home, there are changes that happen to us as we get older, and those changes can be very difficult. So I don't want to dismiss and forget about those people who do experience challenges. But we do know how to make those challenges easier. And that's the message I want to drive home here. So a key thing to remember about the results of the aging research is the changes that happen to our bodies as a result of time don't necessarily lead to chronic disease or disability. Aging increases our risk of developing those conditions, but it's not inevitable. And just because we develop a condition doesn't mean we can't enjoy wellness. So what can we do to reduce our risk of developing chronic disease or disability? So the first step is to focus on whole person wellness. This is achieved by accepting there's no silver bullet, there's no magic pill. Wellness emerges because of a complex interaction between a variety of things in our life. And I really like this wellness wheel model. I've got it up on the screen for you. I think that it does a great job of helping us visualize all the factors that contribute to our health. So let's go over the 8 domains of wellness. So that emotional wellness is coping effectively with life and creating those satisfying relationships with other people. Environmental is enjoying good health by occupying a pleasant, stimulating environment that supports well-being. So this is being in a place that makes you feel good, So like going for those walks in nature. Whenever I was purchasing my house, one of the things that I told my real estate agent is I wanted to be near the bike path. And I am near the bike path near Canyon Lake Park, so those environmental features. Financial wellness is that satisfaction with your current and financial futures, having the money you need and being satisfied with that. I think everybody always would like a little bit more money, but at the end of the day, being satisfied with what you have. So that intellectual wellness is recognizing your creative abilities and finding ways to expand your knowledge. It's staying engaged. It's learning a new skill. If you've done a certain type of knitting your whole life, well, it's learning those new, maybe you'll learn crochet, or maybe you learn a different pattern. Learning a new language is just keeping your mind engaged, is that intellectual. So this map says occupational, but I like vocational better than occupational because it encompasses maybe those volunteer activities that a person does, or maybe the way we invest time with our family. So that personal satisfaction and enrichment that comes from kind of investing that work energy. Physical is recognizing the need for physical activity, healthy foods, and sleep. It's really easy to forget those things. Social, developing that sense of connection and belonging and having a good support system. And the final one is spiritual, and it's that sense of purpose and meaning that a person has in their life. These are super important. And I really want to stress that wellness does not mean without disease. I live with chronic disease, and it does have a significant impact on my life, but I would consider myself healthy. When living with a chronic disease, the key is whether or not we engage in the behaviors that alleviate our symptoms. So that I think is super important for us to remember when we're thinking about this whole person wellness. And another really important one that always comes up is brain health. There's a lot of concerns about memory loss. There's a lot of concerns about brain health. So I like the cog wheel model because I think it helps us understand that You can't simply do Sudoku. You can't simply, take fish oil or whatever quick fix that people are trying to sell us. Our brain health emerges because of complex interactions. And the brain is the most complicated organ in our body. As I'm sitting here talking to you, my heart is pumping, I'm breathing, I'm speaking, I'm hearing. I just saw someone call my cell phone and I'm like, oh, sorry. All these things are happening. I mean, this is the most complicated organ in our brain. So it takes a lot of work. And it's not just the physical exercise, the nutrition, it's that mental stimulation. So a lot of the physical health, I think you'll see overlaps here. A lot of the physical health and the mental health overlap because our body is a really important system. But that sleep and that mental rest, taking a break, whatever that may be, diet, nutrition, social engagement. We need to be around people. We need to be involved with people. We need to have to deal with some of those complicated social interactions. If someone says something you don't agree with, having to practice navigating that. All of those things keep our brain strong. And I just want to emphasize, I've got a question for you actually. So here's why I like this model. So let's see. So what happens if you neglect one of your cog wheels? What happens if a couple teeth break off? What happens to the cogs in the machine? Anybody want to type what happens in the chat box? What happens to the cog? Or you can unmute. There's a small group. Paula, do you want to talk? Oh, hang on. Paula,
I always think you don't feel as good about yourself.
You don't feel as good about yourself. And the cogs, they work together and they turn the wheels, So if you got a couple teeth missing from those wheels, the machine doesn't turn as well. So I really like this model because I think it helps us think about that. The brain, it's not one thing. The brain is a very complicated organ. All right. So let's talk about what aging well means to you. Self-esteem goes down. I just saw that. They don't go around. Thanks, Monica. All right, so let's talk about what does aging well mean to you? Because at the end of the day, aging well is about you and what your goals and priorities are for aging. So you can unmute or you can type in the chat box, but tell me a little bit about what aging well means to you.
Well, I think it means that you remain active and you enjoy life.
I like it. I like it. I mean, Monica writes, able to care for myself, able to do what I want to do. Judith writes, being able to pursue my goals, including hobbies and learning. Yep. We can wait another 30 seconds, see if anybody else is typing, But for me, when I think about aging well, I'm hoping I get to be a wise old person. That's kind of that goal, is to be able to have that wisdom, to be able to know when to speak and when to remain silent. I'm hoping for that, and I'm hoping that, I can be a mentor and inspire others. I mean, those are some of my goals for aging well. Jerry writes, accepting your age and the physical, mental changes. I think it's important. I mean, there will be changes. And what's really difficult about all the health and wellness stuff we all know people who did everything right. They never smoked, they got their sleep, they ate, they exercised, they did everything right. And they still had some sort of chronic disease. So we know that happens. That's why it's about risk reduction. How do we reduce the risk of those happening? And that makes it challenging. So I like this to remind folks about the stages of change. Long story short, behavior change takes time. With the variety of factors that contribute to how we age well, it can be overwhelming. And as we go through the change process, we may find ourselves slipping back into habits that we know aren't good for our wellness. And I urge you to be gentle with yourself. As I shared earlier, I live with a chronic disease, and sometimes it's frustrating that it feels like I have to take extra steps to have, my wellness. Over time, I found the more that I do what I'm supposed to do, the better that I feel. If you're struggling to get started with your wellness journey, SDSU Extension has programs that can help you out. For example, Better Choices, Better Health is a 6-week chronic disease management program that teaches people with diabetes, heart disease, mental illness, whatever, how to manage their chronic disease and set goals to get better. After today's session, I'll send an email with information about how you can learn more about Better Choices, Better Health. And this model on the screen, I think it's a nice little model because it really explains, initially we don't understand there's a problem, so we don't have any intention of doing anything. And then we become aware that there's a problem, and I'm hoping to get a little bit of awareness here with you today. From there, we prepare to make a change, then we make the change, we maintain the change, and then there are relapses. And that is okay. We are all human beings. We all fall short of perfection, and we're all going to make mistakes. So again, I urge you, be gentle with yourself as you're trying to figure out, what goals you might establish. So in summary, how we think about aging is incredibly important because it can affect our motivation to do things that can make our wellness better. All right, so I have questions that were submitted ahead of time. And if you have questions that you would like to discuss, you can certainly go and type those in the chat box. And I'll start with my first question. The first question that I had was, what are the best practices for supporting emotional and social health as one ages? I hope the wellness wheel kind of provided some insight on the different domains, but I will talk a little bit more about how to support emotional and social wellness. And somebody talked about it earlier. Purpose. I would start by making sure that whatever my purpose is very clear to me. Because when we understand our purpose, and purpose, the official definition is self-organizing life aim that stimulates goals. So basically it's what we want to do. And purpose does not have to be this, oh, I'm going to end hunger. I'm going to make world peace happen. Purpose could be, I'm going to make sure that my grandchildren spend, a couple weeks to go together every summer so they can build relationships that will exist after my time on this earth ends. Purpose is very important. And when we understand our purpose, we will invest our energy into those activities that really align with those purpose. And I will send you a document in the follow-up email that it has a workbook you can print out and you can kind of explore your own purpose. I'll send that. Another thing, in the fall, I'm going to be hosting a purposeful retirement book club. And if you are interested in that, be sure to send me an email and I will notify you when the registration is open for that. And we're going to provide the book, and we're looking for about 10 to 12 people that want to participate. So if purpose is something you're interested in, I'm interested in it too, and we're going to try our book club out. So then, any comments about purpose before I move on to the next question? Okay, so we'll go to our next question. The other question is, should a person take certain vitamins or supplements? That really needs to be a conversation with your doctor. So for example, I take vitamin D because my vitamin D levels are always low. But just because I take vitamin D doesn't mean you need to. Your doctor can look at your work, look at your medical history and make recommendations about what are the best supplements for you. You know, I know a woman who takes iron. I don't need to take iron. She does. The importance of diet on aging. It wasn't really a question, it was just a statement. But I will say the food that we eat is incredibly important for how we age. The food, good food that has vitamins, minerals, all those good things that our bodies need are incredibly important, because when our bodies have those vitamins and minerals, it has the tools it needs to fight off diseases. Another question that I got was about working with doctors. And working with doctors sometimes can be challenging for older adults, unfortunately. I didn't really go into it here, but unfortunately, our medical doctors, some of them engage in ageist behaviors. They attribute things that are happening to a person to their age, when in reality, if we treated it, the symptoms would go away. And so it can be difficult, but here I have some tips that I was going to offer about working with doctors. So first and foremost, develop a list of questions or discussion items and bring it to each medical appointment. That'll help you remember to ask everything. And I'm sure I'm not alone in the fact that I've gone and seen my doctor for my annual appointment. I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to ask about this. Always bring a list of your medications. It's extremely important for your doctor to be aware of all the medications you're on. I know that some adults will go to different pharmacies to get the best deals for medications. And, so make sure you've got that complete list of your medications. Bring a family member with you, this person, or a trusted friend. This person can help take notes and ask questions that come to mind, but it's important not to let them take over the conversation. If your doctor has an accent that's really difficult to understand, call ahead of time and ask for an interpreter. I know my mom went through that. She had a doctor who had a difficult accent, and she was struggling to understand them. So if that is the case, ask for an interpreter to help you out. Be sure to bring your glasses and make sure that the battery on your hearing aid is good. And another important thing, if you're working with your doctor and you're having a hard time hearing them, don't be ashamed to say, I'm having difficulty hearing you. It would be helpful if you would speak slowly and face me while you're talking. It's okay to say that. If your doctor dismisses your medical concerns as normal aging, ask for a referral to a specialist or seek a medical appointment. I have heard situations where a doctor has, like a person has come in with memory loss, and the doctor did no test and offered the medication for Alzheimer's without doing any test. And that is highly inappropriate. And if you have a doctor who says, oh, you're old, you're supposed to be forgetful, oh, your arm is supposed to hurt because you're old, I would recommend getting a new medical provider. Unless you feel confident enough to say, hey, that's not appropriate, I recommend getting a new provider. So the last question, and I think this is that I have, and again, if you have other questions that you'd like me to address, or if I've inspired anything as we're talking, they ask, what can be done to help those we cannot visit due to the virus? And this is a devastating problem that we're facing right now. We have a lot of people that are in assisted livings, nursing homes, other, age segregated communities where they are not allowing visitors to come in. And it's devastating for these people. So the recommendations, phone calls, and I know this isn't ideal, but phone calls, ask the nursing home staff, go and ask the nursing home staff, will they connect you to your loved one via FaceTime or some sort of technology so you can at least see them and have a conversation. There's nothing like good old-fashioned cards, maybe get all the grandkids together and make a bunch of pictures and a bunch of cards and put them in an envelope and send them over. But those are the things that can be done at this point in time. And I know that it's extremely difficult to be separated from our loved ones who are living in those facilities, but it's really important for us to keep in mind that they are limiting visitation because COVID is highly contagious, and older adults that are in those facilities are much more likely to be extremely vulnerable to it. And we don't want to lose our loved ones to COVID-19. So that was the questions I got submitted ahead of time. Does anybody on the call today want to ask additional questions or make comments? I'll go ahead and put my contact information on the screen. I will warn you that email is better right now. I'm only in the office. I won't be in the office much through the end of the month because of COVID-19. So. I'm not seeing any questions pop up. So like I said, this is recorded. You will get a follow-up email that has an evaluation in it. By completing that evaluation, it helps me know what I could do better. It also gives you the opportunity. I don't remember if this one's got if you want to be notified about upcoming webinars, send me an email, because I'm not sure if the evaluation actually has that question. But if you would like to be notified when we have upcoming webinars, definitely let me know. This is the part 1 of a 2-part series. On July 14th, we will be having the midsummer planting, and Prairie Walkling will talk about what can be planted, you know, in the middle of the season to be harvested in the fall. And then August 11th, Audrey Ryder will be talking about how to prepare children for the new school year, considering the abrupt change that happened this year. All right, well, there's no questions. I really appreciate your time today. I buzzed through this pretty quick, but I think that's okay. I'm always available to you. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thanks, Judith. And Adrienne and Jerry, thank you all.